I sold my FuelX Lite on my Himalayan 411 and got the FuelX Pro. Now, why did I do that and how does it perform? Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So in the performance mods review on my Himalayan 411 which I had made a few months ago, you can check that video in the link in the I button above. I had mentioned that I had installed the FuelX Lite along with the BMC air filter and the PowerRage exhaust. Now I went with the Lite version instead of the Pro because I didn't want to fiddle around with the maps, and the FuelX Lite had a map which included the settings to incorporate a aftermarket air filter and an exhaust. A few months after that video, I installed the Tech camshaft for the Himalayan 411 and decarried the exhaust pipe with an aftermarket bent pipe from HT Exhaust. A separate review video on the tech cam I had made previously and you can check in the I button above. So after that, I started facing some fueling issues on my Himalayan 411 where either the engine used to get cut off and there used to be some kind of stalling and discrepancies in the fueling. So I figured that it might have to do something with the FuelX. So I contacted Race Dynamics for support. So they told me that the Lite's map is tuned such a way that it's not meant to take into the factor of a high lift cam or even a decarried exhaust pipe. So they told me to get the Pro version installed and to run it on a much richer map. Now you know that the FuelX Pro has 10 maps ranging from 1 to 10, where 1 to 3 runs in a leaner setting than the stock, the 3 is a stock setting, and anything above the 3 is a richer setting. So I found for my use a sweet spot to be around 7 or 8 maps for highway use and 6 or 7 map for city commute. Now coming to the pros of the FuelX Pro. The first is the improved throttle response. Just like the FuelX Lite, the FuelX Pro also improves the throttle response of the Himalayan 411 a little bit. The fueling issues, whatever I had with the tech cam installed and the FuelX Lite was completely gone, almost gone. The bike became much more smoother and the initial throttle response became much more peppier. So the bike became a little more fun to ride. The second pro that I noticed is a less stressed engine. The bike used to sit less stressed on higher RPMs, especially on the highways. When you cruise around 120 km/h all day, the bike used to feel less stressed and less vibey. This made the overall cruising speed on the highway much more comfortable and much more relaxing. Now coming to the cons of the FuelX Pro. The one main con that I notice is the malfunctioning of the FuelX Pro at high altitudes. Now like I told, the FuelX Pro has 10 maps. The 1 and 2 maps run at a leaner setting than the stock. The 3 is the stock map and anything above 3 runs at a richer setting than the stock map, and the richness progressively increases at the map setting. Now according to the manual, when you are at high altitudes, you are supposed to run at a leaner map or the stock map. So as and when progressively you gain altitude, you should come down from a richer setting, come to the stock and then even come to the leaner map to give you better performance at high altitudes, because the air is very thin there and you need to run at a leaner air fuel mixture to give the bike a better performance. So in the recent Ladakh trip that we did in last September 2024, while we were on our way to Manali from Chandigarh, I started out at a map 8, which I usually run at for the highways, and gradually reduced as we kept climbing the altitude. I gradually reduce it down to 5. So Manali sits at around 6,000 feet above the sea level. So by the time we went from Chandigarh to Manali, I slowly came down from the map 8 to map 5. Now I was planning to go to the stock setting while we reached Jispa. Jispa sits around 10,000 feet above sea level. And then from there, from Jispa, when we climbed the first pass, I was going to reduce it to setting of map 1 or 2. But unfortunately, what happened is, soon after we crossed Jispa, the FuelX Pro started malfunctioning and it stopped working. I couldn't change the map, it completely froze. The map button that you have, the plus or minus, usually when you change the maps, it'll blink the number of times to indicate which map it is on. That light continuously was blaring and I couldn't change any map. This started giving me issues, especially in ignition. During a cold start, bike was refusing to start without a choke or without the throttle. I had to always pull down the choke, and luckily my Himalayan is 2020 BS6 model with the choke. So I had to pull down the choke all the time and use the throttle also to get the bike starting. I couldn't change the maps in the FuelX Pro and it completely stopped working. And it caused problem with idling also. The bike, when it idles, used to switch off many times. So during all the high passes when we climbed Sirsila and Singila Pass, I never even switched off the bike. I kept the bike running, and that too with the choke pulled in. If I switched it off, it was difficult for me to switch on the bike, and while the bike is idling, it used to cut off. So I had to keep the throttle pinned all the time. I thought this was the issue only with my unit, but later on when I did my research, I got to know from many users that FuelX Pro had a lot of issues while they were on their trip to Ladakh. Many of them had to disconnect it and bypass it to get even their bike started. Now this issue got completely resolved when I reached Srinagar. When we descended all the way from Leh to Kargil to Srinagar, as in when we descended, this issue got completely resolved, and when we reached Srinagar, the bike started functioning normally and the FuelX also started functioning normally. Now I reached out to Race Dynamics, but they didn't have a definite solution for it. Now the second con is that there is no real world improvement in the power or torque figures. Now Race Dynamics markets these products as performance products and they tell that it will improve the horsepower and torque to a certain amount. But in real world usage, I've never felt any increase in acceleration, any increase in top speed, and any increase in the overall performance. It's just that it makes the fueling a little more smoother and the throttle response improves a little more, so the bike feels a little more peppier and smoother to ride. That's it. Now, who is this FuelX Pro for? Now, if you are looking to improve the smoothness, the overall smoothness, and to improve the throttle response of your Himalayan 411, then FuelX Pro is a good option. It improves the overall smoothness and the fueling of the bike, and it makes the bike a little peppier and overall calmer and smoother to ride, especially on long highways. Now, before installing the FuelX Pro, it is better to have a free flow exhaust and a free flow air filter installed. The reason behind which I have explained in detail in a different video. You can check that video in the link in the I button above. And if you are planning for a trip to Ladakh, don't get it, or if you have it, disconnect it or bypass it and then start climbing altitudes. Now, is it a value for money product? I think FuelX Pro is a value for money product if you have a free flow air filter, a free flow exhaust, and a high lift cam and all that. It makes use of all these modifications to smoothen out your ride, to improve the fueling, and to improve the throttle response. Now, if you don't have all these modifications, I don't think FuelX Pro will help much. Now, after all this, to extract the last drop of performance from my Himalayan 411, I got installed the Powertronics and dyno tuned it, and the review of which comes next, so stay tuned for that video. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys liked it. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.